Nagyon-nagyon sok szeretettel köszöntünk mindenkit itt a Fulfilled.nek az első olyan interjújában, ahol egy külföldi úriemberrel, a világ egyik legjobb önbizalom coachával készítünk interjút, ami azért is nagyon fantasztikus, hiszen nekem volt 2 személyes coachingom vele, és teljesen oda vagyok érte, és az egyik tanulságokat, amiket akkor tanultam meg, a mai napig oktatom a coachingjaimon és az előadásaimban is erősen benne van, és ez 2 alkalom volt együtt. Munroról van szó, aki dolgozott már együtt bűnözőkkel, tehát ilyen nagyon durva borderline-osokkal, ilyen különböző skizofréniásokkal, azt hiszem, nagyon sok emberrel, nagyon sok fajta emberrel, top teljesítőkkel, vezetőkkel, tehát tényleg a társadalomnak egy nagyon széles körében mozgott. Ezen felül, hogy nagyon-nagyon sok tapasztalata van, nagyon-nagyon tetszik nekem az, hogy a személyes példájából tanít, és a személyes belső fejlődéséből ezen keresztül tanít másokat is arra, hogy hogyan lehetnek még magabiztosabbak. Ugye ez az ő szakterülete. A másik, hogy hol találkozhattál vele, a legnagyobb ilyen külföldi önfejlesztő blogokon, vagy ilyen sikerblogokon, például az addicted2success.com-on, a Knowledge for Men-en, a manprovement.com-on és még sok más helyen, illetve egy 2-szeres Amazon bestseller, Daniel Munro. Hey Dan, welcome on your show.
Hey, how's it going, man? I think I understood about 5 words in there, but yeah, welcome, bro. It's good to be here.
Yeah, we are very happy to have you here. You know, you are the first foreign speaker guest on our show.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so when I started to realize that we are having a show, then I put a question into our community, and I wanted the people from the community to send questions, and we received over 15 questions, and together we narrowed it down to 3 main topics.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for your insights on those. And the first topic is using truthfulness to build confidence, both long-term and short-term.
Yeah, that's like we've been talking about. That's come up so much over the last, especially in the last year or so of my work, the concept of truthfulness, of being honest, expressing yourself honestly, talking, saying honest things, and expressing what's going on inside your mind accurately. And I noticed, we were looking through those questions, and so many people were talking about how can I boost my confidence, how do I build my self-esteem, and this kind of thing. And one of the things that's always really bothered me around what's available for people out there at the moment is there's a lot of faking it type stuff for building confidence, pretending to be this, making other people think that you're that, and kind of this, I call it a performance, performing to people and showing confidence rather than actually being confident. And there's a saying, I don't know if you guys have the translation in Hungary, the fake it till you make it. You heard that thing before?
Yeah, we heard it. But I don't think there is a Hungarian word for it.
Probably not. But the idea that you pretend to be confident and then that will make you confident, yes. This kind of concept. And I see that being just such a disaster because it's the pretending that's killed your confidence in the first place. So more pretending is not going to fix the problem that was caused by pretending, So when I talk about truthfulness, I'm talking about not pretending anymore. No more hiding, no more changing what you want to say to make it sound better, to make it sound more interesting and more attractive and whatever. It's about letting go of that pretending, because that pretending is so much about trying to make other people approve of you.
Mm-hmm.
And every time you pretend to make other people approve of you, you don't approve of yourself. That's what pretending is. It's not approving of yourself. It's hiding who you are. So it blows my mind, and I understand because I did this too. How can we think that pretending is going to make us more confident when every time we pretend, we're saying, I'm not good enough? Every time we pretend, every time we lie, every time we hide our emotions, hide what we're thinking and feeling, try to make people like us, Every time we do that, we're basically saying to ourselves, not good enough. You gotta pretend to be something else. Who you are is not good enough for this audience. Pretend to be something else, you know? So when we're looking through those questions, that's the first thing that occurred to me is truthfulness. Everybody's trying to be confident by not being truthful. And I think that's the wrong way to go about it, definitely.
Yes. And I think some people would think that the only source of validation and power and energy would be from outside, like the approval seeking, like showing a better picture to look more confident, to have that validation that you were talking about. How is it possible to change our source of energy and source of stability from outside to inside?
Yeah, and it's hard. That's the first thing I got to say about it. It's hard because you're going to have to do things that make you scared. You're going to have to do things that make you confused and frustrated and all those emotions that you're trying to avoid feeling. That's the price of truthfulness, and that's the price of confidence, actually, is to experience all emotions, all feelings, even those ones that we think of as painful. See, when someone's pretending, they're trying to avoid those painful ones, those feelings of embarrassment, loneliness, rejection, whatever. We're trying to avoid those feelings, and in doing so, we start to be fake. You know, we start to pretend so that we won't end up feeling those emotions. But it's difficult. It's simple in terms of what you need to do. I mean, all you need to do is speak the truth. It's actually quite simple. But simple doesn't mean that it's easy. So simple can still be very hard to do. Even though it's straightforward, I just say what I'm thinking. To actually do that when you're around people, to actually do that when you're with that person you find attractive, or when you're with that group who's judging you, or when you're with your boss, that's when it becomes really hard to do it. So, I mean, we'll definitely talk about some practical things, you know, strategies that people can use, but before we do that, one of the main things I want to emphasize is that to be truthful, you have to be willing to lose everyone. You have to be willing to lose. If you're not willing to lose, if you're desperate to win, or you're trying to not lose, then you're going to end up being fake. That's going to happen because eventually you're going to be faced with a choice. I can either keep this person or I can be truthful, but I can't be both. Now, you won't know what's actually going to happen because you haven't done it yet, but your mind will be saying, if I tell the truth right now, you're going to lose that person. And that's when it matters. That's when you're facing a true confidence decision. Do I go down the path of truth? Do I go, okay, I'm just going to be me and I'm going to let whatever happens happen? Even if it means somebody hates me, I'm going to be me anyway. Or am I going to fake it so that they like me and lose myself? You know, so this is one of the hardest parts of it, especially with a relationship, you know, a love relationship, romantic relationship. Knowing that you saying the truth might make them not want to be with you anymore, and being able to do it anyway because it's the right thing to do, that's when it gets really hard, you know? So I think before we even look at those kind of practical strategies, we really need to just take a moment to kind of digest the idea of being willing to lose people, being willing to be left alone in order to have integrity. Because ultimately, in my mind, what confidence is all about is integrity. It's about me looking at the way I act and the way I speak and going, yep, that's me. That is all me. There's no pretending, no performing, no trying to please, no seeking approval. It's just me, bold, courageous, scared, sure, but me, you know? Because, yeah, like I said, I mean, to me, it seems really obvious. If you're pretending, that message, I'm not good enough. Whatever you are is not good enough. How are you supposed to build confidence if you keep doing that to yourself? Hey. So I was keen to hear from you, you know, in your experience with not just with those questions, but with, you know, the audience watching this. Where do you think people struggle the most when it comes to being truthful?
a main idea that came into my mind was like, it feels like it's more risky to be ourselves and to be totally ourselves, even if it's sometimes irrational, than to do and act the way we think we should. Then actually, I had a relationship with an awesome girl where I have so many occasions when being totally honest and totally vulnerable and open was like totally irrational. Looked like it's the riskiest thing to do with her because I could lose her because she is so great and the relationship is so great. But the funny part was like all these vulnerable things when I told her all about my deepest inner flaws and mistakes and my shadow parts and all of the things that I felt ashamed about and like I didn't want to show or accept or something, all of my flaws. When I told that to her, then I felt like, okay, I'm gonna lose her now. But the funny thing was that made her to be more close and closer to me than ever before. And that was the main part which made this relationship so close and so beautiful, the openness and the honesty. So I think the main part would be, we think it's more risky to be open and to do those things which are us, than feeling like do what they think we should. We think they should. We think they think we should do. Yeah. So you understand.
Yeah, and you've really just nailed it. I mean, there is a risk. The thing is, when you're being truthful, what you're saying is love me or hate me. Those are two options. You're not saying like me in the middle. We're gonna go one way or the other. You're either gonna be close to me after this, or you're gonna be far away from me after this. And I don't know which one it's gonna be until I've done it. So that risk is there, but as you identified, and this is, I've worked with so many hundreds of people around this now, it's very, very unlikely that it's going to separate you from someone if they're a good fit for you. If someone's the right person for you, then your honesty is going to bring them closer. That's the whole circle of this thing. I mean, I think what ultimately everyone has to face is a decision. Do I want a lot of people to like me, or do I want a few people to love me? That's a decision, because if you want a lot of people to just like you, to just never get quite close, but to think of you as a good person and generally think you're all right, then you're going to have to fake it, because it's hard to please a lot of people. Everybody's got different tastes. Everybody wants different things. If you want a lot of people, you're going to have to change who you are with all these different people and suit what they want, But if you just stay strong with what you are, then people are going to have to choose. They don't get to just like you. They have to choose either, hell yeah, this is my guy, or hell no, I don't want anything to do with this guy. And that's the risk we've got to take. But in my mind, it's not even a risk, because if somebody hears my honesty and says, I don't like you, why would I want that person in my life? We're both wasting our time if we feel that way about each other. We shouldn't be near each other. That person should go find their people and I'll go find mine. But this is what I see, so many people wasting their time with bad fits because they faked it. They made a relationship based on lies, and they don't even really like that person. They don't even really want, or they might think they like that person, but that person's really bad for them. It really drags their life down. And they're spending so much time and effort. We've both been through this. When you're pretending in order to make someone like you, it's tiring. It's exhausting. You get to the end of the week and you just want to be alone, because then you won't have to pretend anymore. It's just, it's so much effort. When you're being truthful, it takes effort to be truthful, but then after that you're free. Just no weight, no secrets, nothing to remember, no performing. You don't have to think about what you're going to say, because you're just always truthful. It's so much easier. Right? So I really like that example, man, because that's what this is all about in terms of connection. Is being truthful, is you take that risk, and if they're a good fit for you, you guys will come closer together and it'll be that beautiful connection. And if they react badly to you being honest, then you've just figured out that this is someone who's not right for you. So either way, you win, in a way. You know, again, it's easier to say it than to actually do it in real life when you're faced with the situation of somebody actually not liking you. But and that's something you and I have talked about before. Life's so much better when you're just focusing on those good connections, and you're not wasting your time trying to please everybody, because you can't anyway. It's just tiring and pointless. Right? But I definitely spent most of my life doing it.
I see. And the funny thing is that we have so many preconceptions about other people and what would they react. But this is all about us and not about other people. So when we think of something about another person, for example, I have some people who were my friends 6 years ago when I was not into self-development, and we met again, and they are doing their lifestyle, that basic lifestyle, like going out with their friends and going to school, but not reading that books and not doing these seminars and something like that. And I was thinking that they wouldn't accept me if I would show them my real values and show them why I do and what I do. But the funny thing was that they accepted it, and that they could relate to it, and they admired it. And it was like, wow, all those things which I was thinking about, that they wouldn't accept me if I would show myself totally, then it made a better friendship and a deeper friendship. And they even told that they want to meet more and more. So it's a funny thing.
Yeah, that's I mean, we're so scared that we end up missing out on those experiences where we thought someone, you know, is just a light connection, and then you open up like you did, and suddenly they want more of you. And you've it's like an invitation, being truthful. You're inviting them to have more of you. It really is. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're giving them more of you, more honesty. And think about, you know, I sometimes think about how many people I was dishonest with or pretending with, and I missed out. I missed out on a proper connection with them. They didn't feel safe being open and honest with me because I wasn't being open and honest with them. So they hid away from me. I hid away from them. We both missed out on each other. You know, we're just, what do you call it, acquaintances. We're near each other, but we weren't close. I remember there was a guy I went to high school with. I always liked him. I thought he was a great guy. Sort of one of those loud, extroverted, funny type of guys. But he never liked me, you know, and it used to kill me because I just wanted everyone to like me, you know, and this guy just never did. And I found out many years later that the reason he didn't like me is because he knew I was full of shit. He knew I was pretending. Everybody else thought I was real because my acting was so good, you know, my performance was fantastic. I was so nice and lovely and funny and all that bullshit. And everybody thought that was the real me, but this guy could see past that. He knew it was bullshit, and that's why he didn't like me. And when I found that out, I realized, fuck, I missed out on his friendship because I was pretending. He didn't get to see me. He was the kind of guy that, you know, we could have formed a great friendship because he was a very open, honest guy. You know, he was the kind of guy who got into trouble a lot because he always talking, you know. And I used to love it. I found him so entertaining. You know, this guy would just speak his mind all the time. I used to look up to him and think, God, I wish I could do that, you know. And that's the thing is, you know, one of the questions talked about what happens if we're surrounded by negative people who drag us down, you know. Yeah. And the question's basically asking, how can we surround ourselves with confident people who bring us up? Well, if you're pretending, a confident person isn't going to want to be around you. You know, if you're faking it and if you're lying all the time and you're pretending and trying to impress people, confident people can see that and they don't like it. They don't want to be around that because you're one of the people that drags them down if you're like that. So quite often we're like, oh, all these people are dragging me down. And we don't realize that we would be somebody who would drag a confident person down because we're being fake. We're pretending. So one of the main things is if you want, and this is where it gets really interesting, if you want to surround yourself with healthy, confident people, being truthful will actually push away those unhealthy people. They won't like it. you will have seen it before. You know, if you start talking about self-development to someone who's not into it, who's someone who doesn't like changing, who doesn't like fixing themselves or whatever, they're just like, oh, whatever. And they leave you alone. You know, they don't want to talk to you anymore. And you might be thinking, oh, he rejected me. It's like, no, you just got an unhealthy person away from you. That was a good move. You just helped yourself there. And you've now created a space for a confident person to come, you know. And I've seen this before. I'll be in where I used to stay. It was like a real party house. Nobody was really into self-development or anything. Nobody really wanted to grow. They just wanted to stay the same forever, you know, just drinking and drugs and partying and shit like that. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. That's my old life. I'm not really into that now. But what was really interesting is I'd be at a party and like half the people wouldn't want to talk to me because they don't like the kind of things I talk about. You know, they wanted to talk about cars and drinking and shit like that. And I wanted to talk about confidence and psychology and the way the mind works and, you know, life. But what would happen is I'd end up at the party where half the people don't want to talk to me, but like one or two guys really did, you know, and we'd go off together in a corner and we'd talk about something deep and meaningful. Mm-hmm. And I'd come away from parties like that, like, fuck yeah, that was a good night. But I only spoke to like two people, but we spoke for real. We had a real connection. So to the person who before asked the question, how do I get rid of people who are very negative and dragging me down? The answer is always going to be more honest. It will push those people away if they're a bad fit for you. And that will create the space and the attraction for people who are good fit for you. Because confident people, they're attracted to truth. They don't have time for bullshit. They don't want to play. They look at pretending as kind of pathetic, you know, childish. It's like, you're still pretending and you're an adult? I don't have time for this. So it's quite radical. Like what we talked about, you know, with you and your girl before. If she had left you because you had been like that, it would probably mean she was really bad for you, you know? But it was like a test. That honesty was like, are you right for me or not? Because this honesty is going to decide, you know? But talking about how to do this, which is where most guys really struggle. The guys who do want to be honest and truthful, they still struggle. How do I do it? Because when I do it, it comes out weird, you know, like it creeps people out, or it sounds like I'm really judgmental, or I'm scared I'm just going to say all this really negative shit all the time, you know. There are different ways to be honest. You know, you can be honest in a powerful way, or you can be honest in a weak way. And I think that's the problem is when people first start trying to be honest, and I did the same thing, I was doing it in a weak way. You know, I was doing it in a way that it's hard to listen to. It's kind of off-putting. It makes people uncomfortable. And so I thought, I wanted to get some feedback from you first, but I thought maybe one of the things we could talk about today is how to be powerfully honest. You know, how to be honest in a way that's strong rather than weak.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. You know, and a question raised into my mind, because I know that we all nice guys have that belief that we are not acceptable when we don't feel good. And I'm really curious about you. How are you? And how do you feel? And when you feel down and angry or something like that, stressful, how do you express those feelings and do you express yourself?
Well, that's really what we're getting into, is understanding that being confident doesn't mean that you're not scared. It doesn't mean that you're not stressed. It doesn't mean that you're going to be free from all those emotions forever. Confident person accepts having those emotions, because those are normal fucking emotions. They're normal. That's what everybody has. Everybody gets scared and stressed and confused and frustrated. We all have that. That's normal. A confident person goes, okay, I'm scared right now. What am I going to do about it? It uses those emotions. Anger. Anger is a very powerful emotion. Without anger, you don't have courage. Without anger, you don't have strong passion. You need anger to have a full life. But so many guys, you know, we've talked about this before, especially nice guys. We're told that anger is bad and wrong, and we associate it with violence and terrible acts. And we think that people who are angry are bad people. So we push it down and we hide it and we apologize for it and we're ashamed of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we start to lose ourselves, because the anger is part of us. It's real. So as soon as we pretend to not be angry, we're already off track with confidence. We're starting to go to away. And this is why we want acceptance from other people all the time, because we don't accept ourselves. We don't accept what we really are, the darkness that we have in us. It's not all happiness in there. I don't know why we are raised to think that somehow you can be happy all the time, you know? Like, can you actually imagine being happy all the time, non-stop, 24/7, like, yay, all the time? You'd go fucking crazy, right? At the very least, it would be boring, you know? So the idea that we're supposed to just be this one emotion all the time it's ludicrous. It doesn't even make sense. And yet we're trained to believe that. So we start to see all these normal emotions as bad and wrong, you know, and we hold them back and we hide them. So I think we can talk a little bit about how do we show those, but without it being this like harmful thing, you know, like with anger. Some people show anger by shouting, by being violent, by throwing a tantrum like a child. That's one way to show anger. But that's not the most powerful way to show anger. Some people show anger by being passionate. Some people show anger by being courageous. You know, I'm actually like, when I have these kind of conversations, I usually get angry. Like, I'm kind of angry now, but it's not anger like most people think of it, like, I hate the world. It's anger that's just strong. This means a lot to me, you know. That's anger. So it can be expressed without it having to be this terrible negative thing. But one of the keys here, because you really nailed it, is before you can even express yourself truthfully, you have to understand that everything about you that's truthful is okay. That doesn't mean that you should punch someone when you're violent. Doesn't mean that you should punch someone when you're angry, but it does mean that you do get angry. The anger's okay. Punching someone, no. But being angry is fine. Being sad, that's fine. If you're not sad, you can't reflect on life. If you're not sad, you can't appreciate someone. Without sadness, you have no compassion. We need sadness to be a full emotional human being. But if sadness means that you sit on the couch for 6 weeks eating chips and watching TV and refusing to live, that's not a helpful way to be sad. There are better ways to be sad than that. You can still be sad, but there's another way to express it. So this is what I was saying before, that there's so many different options on how to be honest. And so often, because we think the emotion we're feeling or the thoughts we're having are bad and wrong, then the way we express it is usually really harmful as well. You know, if I think anger's wrong and I'll push it down and push it down and push it down, eventually it's too much and I explode and I just have a go at someone. And then I'll be like, see, I told you anger was wrong. Every time I get angry, I do this. It's like, no, you were pushing anger down for 6 weeks. No wonder you did that. You know, if you had expressed the anger when it first happened, if you had used it to achieve something, or if you had used it to set boundaries with someone, you know, you could have used that anger if you just didn't think the anger was wrong. Even anxiety, we were talking about anxiety at Brojo last night. And because we're having this conversation, I said, what emotions do you think are wrong? And somebody said anxiety. Without anxiety, you don't know what's important. Without anxiety, you don't have the energy to perform on stage or to give a public speech. You know, without anxiety, you can be bored and dull and uninteresting. Without anxiety, you don't get a thrill out of something. So we need anxiety to really, like, if you think about it, when you're anxious, like when you're nervous about something, that's living. Like, you're so alive and that's happening. You know, you're really on, you know, like, oh my God, this thing's happening. You're so alive. And the reason we think it's bad is because we think it's bad. We think, oh no, I shouldn't feel this way. And that's when it gets painful. But if we're just like, fuck yeah, I'm anxious, here we go, it would actually be a totally different experience. It'd be much more like excitement, you know? So I keep teasing about the strategies and stuff, but the point I'm trying to make here is, before you can be truthful, you have to accept the truth. Whatever's happening in you, whatever you are at this moment, is true. To pretend, to hide it, to fight against it is stepping away from confidence, not towards confidence. Towards confidence is like, okay, this is the way I am. How am I going to use it? Not, how do I turn this off so I can go back to being confident? It doesn't even make sense to me now, but it used to, you know, that idea. I've got to be this great guy that has all these rules attached to it. And it means he can't be this and he can't be that. So every time I'm any of those things, I feel bad about myself because I'm not that guy, you know. It's just crazy. You are whatever you are at any given moment.
Yes. You know, I love your definition about confidence. Confidence is having no shame attached to who you are. It's so great, and it helped me realize so much things. For example, you know, I'm really excited and curious about meeting awesome people like you, like self-help authorities in Hungary and all over the world, you know, like John Cooper, Sean Russell, and so many Hungarian awesome people. And you know, these people are really in the spotlight. And most people, they are leaders and inspire people. And it's so great to see you guys and all of us that we are real human beings, and everybody has those same emotions and same beliefs and doubts sometimes, and feelings of anxiety and sadness, and we have all our flaws. And it helped me realize that I'm such an okay person as I am, and have to accept myself totally as I am, because when we look up to somebody, we are really tend to idolize them and idealize that and put them on a pedestal. But sometimes that's not true. It's more helpful to express ourselves and see other people are real human beings as well. It helps us accept ourselves as well.
Yeah, it's really easy, especially these days with, you know, Facebook and stuff like that, for someone to look so much more amazing than they actually are. You know, someone to look like they're perfect and smooth and polished, and it's just not real. I remember it's this funny thing someone told me once. We were talking about status. You know, you think people are better than you or worse than you, that kind of concept, which can only happen with insecurity, you know. And part of confidence is getting to a point where you see everyone as being equal. There is nobody who's better or worse. You know, the president of the United States and a homeless person are just as worthy as each other. They're both valuable people. Neither of them's better, you know. But someone was telling me, he goes, one way to think about it, he's talking about the Queen of England. And he said, one way to think about it is at some point in time, over the next few months, the Queen of England will go to the toilet and she'll be stuck on the toilet with raging diarrhea. And I was like, what? And I realized what he meant was, no matter who she is, she's still just a person. She's just a person. She goes through all the same shit, literally, that we do. You know, so all those people you admire and you think they're so amazing and perfect, they still have sleepless nights where they can't figure out a problem. They still have the insecurity that their partner doesn't love them anymore. They still have the stress because they don't have enough money. They have all the same shit that we have. They don't talk about it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen, you know. And being confident doesn't mean getting to a place where you don't have any of those things. It just means getting to a place where you're okay with whatever you have. You're just okay with it, you know. It's just who you are. One of the questions that you showed me, one of those 15 questions somebody asked is, I can't remember, something about how do you know when you're confident? How do you know where the different levels of confidence are? And there are some things I've noticed in my time, like coaching people with confidence. There's sort of milestones that people hit. And one of those milestones is when you don't want to be anyone else. It's a really key one, is when there's all the 7 billion people in the world, all the celebrities and all the millionaires and everything, you wouldn't switch with any of them. That's a true mark of confidence where you're like, whatever I am, that's what I want to be. Like, I want to see where this life goes. You know, I want to watch what happens to me. I've put a lot of effort into me. I've created me. I'm not going to swap that for somebody else. I don't care what they've got. You know, this is I've worked on me. I'm proud of me, you know. So I think that's a really key point in confidence, where you wouldn't trade places with anyone. Brad Pitt, no one. You would not trade places with anyone. And it's because you accept yourself. You're like, no matter what, no matter how messed up I am sometimes, that's fine. I like me. Me's good. I want to watch what happens. I want to see me get through those struggles. You know, I want to see me overcome all those battles. I don't want to run away from those battles. I want to be there when it happens, you know. And that's going to be really hard to do if you're not okay with having struggles. And the funny thing is, it doesn't matter who you swap places with, you're still going to have struggles, you know. I mean, look how many celebrities and millionaires end up in drug rehab. You really think their life is so great if they had to turn to like drug addiction at that level? It just goes to show that there's still problems. That no matter how much money you've got or how many people like you, you still have problems. You still have emotional pain. And that never goes away. You can't buy your way out of that. So you may as well stick with the one you are, you know, and work on that. Because it doesn't matter who you switch with, it's going to be the same things come up. I saw a talk by a guy. He's from, he was from Africa, and he had been in like, the movie Blood Diamond. He'd been in that kind of lifestyle, you know, child soldiers and stuff like that. And his parents were killed in front of his eyes when he was a young child, and then he lived like in a little gang of children who had no parents for like 10 years. Stealing and just, you know, trying to survive a civil war that was happening in his area. And he eventually escaped as a refugee and came to New Zealand. And what was really interesting about him is, you know, despite all that stuff happening to him, he was just grateful. He was grateful for all of that stuff because he had finally realized that who he was had been created by all of that. So whoever you are, no matter how painful it was for you to get here, that's all that stuff created you. You know, you can't deny it to yourself. It is you. Your past has made you who you are. And, you know, for me, I think of one of the best ways to get confident around your past, to have no regret, is to make your past worth it. So if you become a person that you're proud of now, then your past makes sense. You know, like I think about being a nice guy and all those missed opportunities and all that pain and suffering I had trying to please people. But if I hadn't been through that, I couldn't coach people about being a nice guy. I couldn't help others with it. That was my training, you know? That was how I learned about this thing so that I could help others. And so to swap with someone else, to miss out on all of that training, this doesn't even make sense to me anymore, you know? But, so this is one of the keys. We'll talk about now some things to keep in mind when you're being truthful so that it comes out strongly and powerfully and not weak and scaring away people who might be a good fit, you know. But those things don't even matter. What really matters is understanding that this is about self-acceptance. Into a point that whatever you are is what you are. That is reality. You don't have to be something else. You just use what you are in a way that helps you and helps others. That's all. You don't have to turn off anger. You don't have to wait for fear to go away. You don't have to try and hold back anxiety. Whenever those things happen, use them. Find a way to use them. You know, fear is a great way to build courage. You can't be courageous unless you're afraid. The only way you can be brave is if you do something that you're scared of doing. That's the only way you can be brave. So everyone should be welcoming fear, you know. You won't know what's important if you don't get anxious. So everyone should be welcoming anxiety, even like depression. I get depression probably about 3 times a year, about a week or so I'm like down and out sort of thing. And I use that time to reflect on my life. I use that time to journal, to go for long walks, to just ask myself, what am I doing with my life? What do I believe about the world? You know, I get back in touch with my philosophy when I'm depressed. And now depression's like, it still hurts to be depressed, but it's not something I think of as bad. It's like a necessary, just like the kind of pain you feel when you're working out your muscles at the gym. It's a necessary pain for growth. Yeah. And I think of the same thing with a lot of these emotions that we think of as painful. It's a necessary pain. And of course, most of the time they're just painful because we think they're wrong and we're fighting against them. They wouldn't even hurt if we didn't fight against them. You know, like sadness. It doesn't even hurt to be sad. It hurts to try and stop yourself from being sad, though. Yeah, so looking at those strategies, one of the things I wanted to share with you guys today, in terms of something that you can use in real life, is there's kind of these 5 aspects that I put together for powerful honesty. 5 things. And what you can do is every time you're trying to be truthful, is you can review it afterwards to see if it met these 5 standards. You know, so that you'll know whether or not it was powerful and how you can make it more powerful next time. So the first one, actually, before I go into that, do you have any questions or anything before I plow into it?
No.
All right. So now I've got my anger going, so I'm on a roll. So the first one is responsibility, which is a lot about the acceptance we were just talking about. When you say something truthful about yourself, you have to own it. It has to be yours.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a big one for being judgmental. So if I say something judgmental, like, you're a dick, it's kind of honest, as in, like, that. I don't actually think you're a dick, but let's say I did. It's kind of honest in that I'm saying what I think, but it's not me taking responsibility for how I feel. I'm blaming you for how I feel when I call you something. Responsibility would be saying something like, when you said that, I got angry.
Mm-hmm.
That's responsibility. Or when you did that, I got myself angry.
Mm-hmm.
See how much different that sounds? If I say, like, oh, that person's so mean to me, you know, they bully me, it sounds weak. It's honest, but it's weak.
Mm-hmm.
But if I say, hey, when that person behaves that way, I notice that I bring up my own insecurities.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm talking about insecurity, it sounds stronger because I'm in charge of it. Someone listening to me goes, oh, okay, he's got this. You know, he's not going to dump this on me. He's not going to be a victim and bring me down. He's in charge of himself. He's in control of this, you know. So that responsibility factor is a big one. So actually, I should have said this before. What I'd suggest everyone listening does is they write a big list of all the things that they hide from people, all their shame. You know, the things about their past that they don't tell people about, the emotions they don't let people see, the beliefs that they pretend to not have, the things they agree with, what they don't agree with, whatever. All those things they hide. And then they can go through and try and write out these things using this more powerful honesty model. So first thing is take responsibility. So if you've got something like, let's say you got something you're ashamed of, like, I don't make enough money. That's not taking responsibility, right? That's saying that money is this thing that you're ashamed of, but money's not you. So responsibility would be something like, sometimes I allow money to make me feel insecure.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm owning that. That's my thing to deal with. It's funny, I'm talking about being insecure, but it doesn't sound weak. You know, sometimes I allow money to make me insecure. So I got this. You know? So that's the first factor, responsibility. The second one is to be detached and optimistic. Now, the opposite of this is to have an identity, like I am a loser. That's an identity. So again, that's honest, but it sounds really weak. Like, help me, I'm a loser. There's nothing I can do. But detached and optimistic would be to say something like, I just noticed that I had this thought pop into my head that said that I'm a loser. It's detached. I'm looking at the one little part of me rather than saying I am this thing.
Yes.
And in particular, I'm optimistic about it. Like, I can deal with this. This could go somewhere good. So, I just noticed. I had a thought. I am a loser. I think I got this. I can handle this. Detached and optimistic. Now, the funny thing is, being detached is actually more honest than saying, I am a loser. You know? Like, if I say, I am a loser, that's so not true. It means that I lost at having breakfast. It means I lost at sleeping. It means I lost at having a shower this morning. I wouldn't be alive if I was a loser. If everything about me never won anything. I wouldn't be alive. I wouldn't be able to finish a meal. I wouldn't be able to get out of bed. So to call myself a loser isn't even true. To say I just had a thought pop into my head that said I'm a loser, that's a bit more true. Already I'm detached. I'm saying it's just a thought.
Mm-hmm.
I can say I am anxious, which makes it sound like my entire body is always anxious all the time. Like I am anxiety, like it's my superhero fucking thing, right? Or I can say right now my heart's beating really fast, my shoulders are tense, and my mind is racing with thoughts. I'm actually saying I'm anxious, but I'm detached. I'm looking at the different parts of it rather than saying this is my whole identity. And it always sounds so much more powerful, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Then beating heart, I can deal with that. Tense shoulders, I got that, fine. Racing thoughts, well, it's difficult to deal with, but I still got this. I'm going to survive this situation. Whereas if you say, I'm anxious, it sounds like you're hopeless, like you got no chance. You're owned by your anxiety. Right? So we're taking responsibility and that detached kind of explanation. So did you want to cut in there?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I love that so much when you have to cut out our bullshit and come back to the reality. It's so good. I always love that. I think that's really a sign of yours. Like you always focus on the bodily parts. What do you feel when you're anxious? What do you feel when you are angry? Like how my heart is beating, how am I breathing, and something like that, and not that I am anxious stuff. And it helps a lot. And I think it's really good. And you are the first person where I realized that.
Yeah, it's they're breaking things down into their parts because that's all a thing is. It's just little parts. One of the things that we're talking about here is about making more effort. It's lazy to say, I'm anxious. You're saving on words. You're not putting enough effort in because it's not true. You're not anxious. You've never been anxious. You've never been an entire human anxiety thing. To say I am anxious is lazy. It's as truthful as saying I'm a dog. It doesn't make sense. But to say my heart is racing and I'm having these not good enough thoughts popping into my mind, that's much more truthful. You're not saying I am this all the time. You're just saying this is occurring right now. It's a small fraction of my life, right? But an hour ago, I was calm and peaceful, So I was that. Now I'm this, and then I'm that. I'm always going to be breaking down. And even those other ones, those emotions, will say, someone says, how's your day going? Say, I'm fine. What's fine? Your whole identity is fine? Like, what is that? Tell them what's really going on. Say, I can feel a relaxation in my muscles. I've just been daydreaming about my girlfriend. This is what I call a good day. And it's so much more interesting, but it takes more effort. And so that's the third point I wanted to make is you have to put in the effort. Being truthful is harder than being dishonest. Being truthful takes more thought, takes more effort, and more emphasis. So it's easy. Lying and dishonesty or weak honesty is lazy. So I'm this, you're that. This is that. This is that. It's never looking at all the detail and really looking at the evidence. Like you said, really getting to reality. Reality is never this one thing that you can give a name to. It's just bits and pieces. And it sounds so much more powerful when you talk about those bits and pieces. It's so much more powerful for somebody to, like if someone says, oh, I'm anxious, compared to someone saying, when you said that, my palms started sweating and my heart started racing. It actually starts to sound romantic, but you're talking about anxiety. It's so much more powerful to talk about it in reality. And especially to get that balance. My heart's racing, my palms are sweating. But, I can still talk, I can still walk. Everything's all right. Showing that not like, I am anxious, I'm done for. Or I'm afraid. It's like, yeah, I can feel sensations of fear going through my body. And I've got these thoughts racing through my mind. And I'm going to go on stage anyway. And that's where those emotions that you think are wrong and bad can actually become an inspiration to other people. I remember this time, I don't know if I've told you this story. I was at a seminar This guy was doing a thing around the not good enough story that we all have in our head. Dr. Russ Harris, he's an awesome guy. Talking about the
Yeah.
not good enough story. And he was about to bring someone on stage. And he was saying, right now, my not good enough story is happening right in front of you guys. You know, there's like 500 people in this room. He's like, right now, my brain is telling me that I'm a fraud, that I'm not a real coach, that this is going to go terribly, that everybody hates me. That voice is playing in my mind right now, and my heart's starting to beat really fast. And I was watching him say this. I'm like, I just don't believe it. He just seems so confident. Like, I don't buy it. And then he's like, I'll show you guys. And he walked down between the row between the two groups of people, and he showed us his hands, and you could see them. They were wet. You know, he was sweating. Like, his whole palm was really, like, you could see it catching the light, you know. I was like, holy shit, he is nervous. You know, I could see it. Like, proof. All it did is make me think he was even more confident than before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is the only guy in the room who has the balls to show everyone that he is sweating with nervousness. That's confidence. And it was that moment where I realized that confidence doesn't mean you're not anxious. Confidence means you're shameless about being anxious. Confidence means that whatever you are, you don't mind if people see it. You'll let them see it because you're okay with it. That's real. That's inspirational confidence, you know. And you think about it, you watch any TED talk or, you know, the great leaders, the people that you just admire and look up to. Most of them are they'll talk about how fucked up they are. They'll let you see it. And they'll let you just be part of it. And you'll connect with them as a human because you're like, oh, I know what that feels like. You know, we always do it with comedians, you know, the good stand-up comedians. They're always so funny because they talk about what we all think and what we all feel and what we all go through, and that's what makes us laugh. Like, oh my God, I do that too. You know, we realize it's okay when somebody's joking about it, that all these things that we normally are so worried about, a comedian can show us that it's fine. It's just being a human. It's actually kind of funny, you know. Which actually brings me to that fourth point is being playful. Being playful and using truth to connect in a playful way. John Cooper's a big one for this one. He talks about this a lot. But the idea, when I say playful connection, is that no matter how painful your life is, it's also kind of funny. Like, being a human it's fucked up being a human. You know, we've got so much stuff going on. It's crazy to be a human. Like, we're an animal that knows it's going to die. I mean, how crazy is that? Like, that is just, you see other animals that don't know that. You know, you watch, I don't know, a fish or something. It has no idea it's going to die one day. It just plods around, you know, just having a life, completely blissfully unaware that one day it will end, you know, but we know it is. Why do we know that? You know, why are we allowed to have that information? It doesn't even make sense, but that's what I mean, Nate. No matter how messed up you are, no matter how anxious you get or how afraid you get, it's funny that we get like that. You know, you talk about, right now I'm about to go on stage and talk to these people, and I know it's fine. No one's going to throw rocks at me. No one's going to run up on stage and stab me or set me on fire. And yet look at my hands sweating like I'm about to go to war. You know, like, that's funny. It's funny that that happens to us. Like, why does it happen to us? Why is our brain such a mess all the time? You know, when we're on a date, so many people will, like, they'll be on a date and they'll hide all the crazy shit that's going on in their head. It's like, oh my God, she's talking, but all I can do is think about her naked. Oh no, now I'm thinking about her naked. Oh shit, now I'm not even listening to her. You know, that's all going on in your head. And she would love to hear about that because that's hilarious, you know? But we keep it to ourselves and we isolate. We're like, this is serious and it's big and it's a big deal and we should keep it quiet. You know, we feel alone with weak honesty, you know? And we say, I'm the only one who feels this way. It makes it serious and isolated. But when you say, well, we're all a bit fucked up, it makes it a connection. It makes it playful, you know? I remember once I was actually with my current girlfriend. The very first night we were going to be together. She was at this dancing. I was waiting for her to come round. And see, this wasn't that long ago. It was about 6 months ago. 7 months maybe. And I was lying in bed and I was starting to get nervous about her coming, you know. Just because, you know, when you wait for someone You start imagining what's going to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen with her. We didn't have any relationship or anything. It's just a girl coming to my house, and it could go any way. And I was getting really nervous, and I was like, why am I getting nervous? It's just a girl coming to my house. And I started beating myself up about being nervous.
Yeah, I know that.
I'm lying there having this kind of fight with myself, you know. So stop being nervous. You're supposed to be a confidence coach, blah, blah, blah. This bullshit going on in my head. And then this thought occurred to me. It's just like, I'm a little bit fucked up sometimes. And it was just such a nice thought. I was like, oh, yeah, that's what this is. I'm making it out like it's some big deal to be nervous and then beat yourself up for being nervous. But we all do that. It's not that big a deal. It's just funny that we do that. Here I am lying, having this like war all by myself. And it's kind of funny, you know. So when you express yourself, you can express it in a connected way. You can either say like, oh, I'm anxious. Oh, I shouldn't be anxious. You know, it's such a small thing. Can't believe I get anxious about this. Make it this isolated, serious thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can be like, oh, I've got that. You know, that thing where you get anxious just because you're going on a date. It's like, it doesn't even make sense because that person's, it's not like they're going to do anything to you, but your brain doesn't know that. It starts throwing all these thoughts in your head. Like, that's happening to me right now. When you say it in that way, like, we are like this, you know, and share it in that way, it's so much more powerful. And it helps you identify connections. So if somebody else goes, nah, I've never felt that way. Well, for a start, they're lying. And secondly, they're saying, hey, I'm not a good connection for you. Right? But if somebody goes, yeah, I know what you mean. Like, I'm so like that. You connect. You come together and understanding, hey? So the last point I want to make, so we got that was point number 4. And the last one I want to make, balanced investment. When you're being truthful, the other person has to have their turn as well. It has to be a balance. You have to invest in the connection equally for it to be a respectful connection, you know? And so what I see so many people do when they're trying to be honest is they either share too much or they don't share enough.
Mm-hmm.
So they either like drown someone in their honesty. Like you're sitting there in the corner going, oh my God, this guy's not going to leave me alone. He's just pouring all his deepest, darkest secrets at you. And you're like, oh, this is too much. Or you feel like you're doing all the work. Like you have to drag information out of them. Like they just won't share. They won't meet you. So one of the key ones when you're talking about being honest is make sure that I kind of like as a little technique, like share one thing at a time. Give them one thing and then wait for them to have their turn, you know? And you can actually tell people to have their turn. I do this all the time. Like I might tell my girlfriend a big story that's a bit shameful. Like I'll tell her about something that I was embarrassed by. And then I'll say to her, now you tell me about a story when you were embarrassed. You know? Mm-hmm. You tell me about a time when something didn't go right for you. I'll say, you know, it's your turn now. Let's balance this. And that's where a connection can build one step at a time. You keep building it up together rather than one person going all in and the other person feeling overwhelmed by the weight of this information that they've received, you know. So let me stop yapping for a second. What are your thoughts on that, man?
I can totally relate to mostly the 5th one, the balanced investment part. I think reading about your 3x method, after that I started to use this technique, and it's really good to when I'm for example when I'm building a friendship or when I'm meeting a girl and I start to feel those anxiety things, and when I start to, this is a really good principle to guide me when I want to build a connection, just to take one small step, and if she does one as well, then I'll continue, and then we can do this great dance together. But if she wants, then that's not our path together. And I think I was doing it subconsciously as well, because I think this is a breaking down a healthy behavior.
Yeah, it's so important, you know. And the other thing is, it's like some people will invest in a relationship or a connection for a really long time before realizing that it's out of balance. And it was because it started out of balance. You know, they got it out of balance at the start, and they just kept it that way. So like, you look at a relationship where one person's doing all the effort and the other person's lazy and not putting any effort in. You know, it's not necessarily that that's a bad person. It's just that they set the tone early where I'm going to do all the effort and you do nothing. So they just get into that pattern, you know. And this is where I see, you know, we talked about being confident, validation from others. You have to be willing to lose people. If they're not going to meet that investment, you'll know it. You know, if you tell someone a secret about yourself and they're just like, oh, yeah, I'm like, well, now it's your turn. And they're like, nah, I've got nothing to say. Straight away, I'm like, okay, well, what am I doing here? Why am I talking to this person? If that's the way they are, and right there's 20 people over there who might be more interested in sharing with me, why am I still talking to this person right now? Or why am I still on this date? Or even the bigger ones, and this is where it gets really scary about truthfulness, is that you'll start to realize that you might be in an environment that you can't live by your values in, you know, an environment that doesn't support you being yourself, being truthful. And that's when I think this is why a lot of people really struggle with this. Like, being truthful might mean that one day you realize that you've got to leave your job. It's just you're not working in the right place for you. Big change. It might realize that you have to break up with your partner. It might make you realize that you need to move to another country. You know, being truthful is going to bring out that pain. And that's what confidence is about. It's about being willing to face that, being willing to face the truth that your truth creates. You know, you're being truthful at your job and you end up getting fired for that. It means you're in a shit job for you. That job was not right for you. It's good that you got fired, even though it's hard. You know, if you're trying to make friends in your city by being truthful and no one in your city seems to be getting along with you, you're probably in the wrong city for you. It's time for you to move. And I think a lot of people building confidence, they wish that it could just be easy. You know, it could just be no effort. Just do this breathing technique and then you'll be confident. It just doesn't work that way. Being confident is about putting in the effort. There's no laziness to confidence. Confidence means working on that self-acceptance. And the thing is, it does get easier. You know, if you've been telling the truth for 6 months, it's really easy to tell the truth after that. You don't have any secrets left. There's nothing to worry about. Everybody you talk to has already met you. They know who you really are. You don't have to change and guess and moderate yourself. But that 6 months will be hard. You know, it's like learning to play the guitar. The first 6 months, you just suck. No matter how hard you practice, you just suck. You just feels like you're just not getting it. And then suddenly it clicks. You're like, oh, I can play now, finally. But it's like, it's the same thing with confidence, with being truthful. Is at first it's going to be messy and hard and it's going to take a lot of effort. You know, and then it gets easier as the people in your life who are a bad fit for you leave. They get replaced by people who are a good fit for you, and you actually start to be encouraged to be more truthful, and it builds and builds and builds. But that's the hard truth of this. When it comes to building confidence, it's going to be uncomfortable and hard at first.
Yeah. And the awesome thing is that the results are almost instantly when we start to take those hard steps and effortful steps, and we start to express ourselves openly and honestly. Then we start to feel, even when the circumstances and the environment doesn't change that fast, but we can feel that immediate enlightenment inside when we start to drop out those weights of hiding and shame and something like that.
Exactly. I mean, if every time you're hiding something, you're saying I'm not good enough, every time you're saying you're being truthful, you're saying I am good enough.
Yes.
And that builds up too. You be truthful for a couple of weeks and you just start to feel lighter. Like maybe it's okay to be me, you know? And you start to care less about what other people think of your truth. It starts to matter less. You know, somebody else is like, oh, really? You're like, yeah, I got this, bro. Don't worry. You know, if you want to judge me, just judge me. That's your life, man. It's your insecurities. Good luck with it. And that's the thing, you know, all those people judging you that you're so worried about, they wouldn't do that if they were confident. So you don't need to be worried that somehow you're worse than them. If they're judging you, they've got problems, guaranteed. So what are you worried about? Let them judge you. Let them show that they're insecure. Maybe you can help them with it one day. But for now, just let them show themselves. Let the people who are a bad fit for you reveal themselves. You do that by being truthful with them.
Now I'm looking to the questions as well, to a quick check. I think there is a short question. Is there such thing as too much confidence?
I think arrogance is sometimes confused with confidence.
Yeah.
Arrogance, the difference between arrogance and confidence is that when you're arrogant, you think you're better than other people, which means you're comparing yourself to other people. Confident, you don't compare. There's no point. There's no need to compare. You're measuring yourself based on your own values and truth. You don't need comparison. So if somebody's saying, I'm the best, if somebody's talking themselves like they are better than other people and they're trying to dominate other people, that's not confidence. It's quite the opposite. Only an insecure person does that. Only a person with low self-worth feels the need to try and compete with others, to beat them, So I would say sometimes arrogance looks like lots of confidence, but it's the opposite. It's very little confidence. It's domination because of fear, domination because of insecurity. What I'd say is sometimes as you're building this, like as confidence goes up, you might go through a cocky period where you just think, wow, I am fucking awesome, and just for the first time in your life, you're experiencing like high self-worth and you can get a bit carried away. Enjoy it. It's not going to really, if it's real confidence, you're not going to harm anyone. You might annoy some people. It's like, God, he's always going on. Like, look at him. But that's okay. That's their own problem to deal with. But if you feel that you're hurting other people or you're trying to control other people or you're trying to beat other people, don't worry. That's not confidence. That's something else.
Yes. And, you started to talk about anxiety and those stressful situations. Can you give us suggestions, for example, to a public speaking event or an exam when sometimes it's not that helpful to say to the teacher that I'm really anxious right now? What would you suggest to do in this situation?
Actually, I would say that. Okay. Like one of the best things to do with public speaking, if you're feeling anxiety at the start, is to start your public speaking talking about the anxiety. But again, using those principles we talked about, don't go up there and say, I'm anxious. Just say, as I walked on stage, my heart started pounding, my palms are sweating. It made me realize, wow, this talk's really important to me. And you can give it in that powerful way. So don't fight against the anxiety. However, sometimes the anxiety builds up so strongly, maybe because you're not quite shameless about it yet. It takes a while to get shameless. I understand that. I would say learn how to meditate. Learn mindfulness meditation. Learn how to bring yourself to the present moment, focus on your breathing, that kind of thing. And if it's a social thing like public speaking, then do that before you go on stage. Go and talk to as many people as you can. Don't sit in the back room by yourself, freaking yourself out before you go on stage. Get in amongst the crowd and talk to them and chat and socialize so that when you walk on stage, it's just more talking. You've already been doing it for half an hour. It doesn't feel like this new thing where you go in from like cold to hot. Go in warm, I had a public speaking event last year, I think. Quite a big audience. So what I did is I met everyone at the door, and I showed them to their table and had a little chat with them as I took them in. So by the time I went on stage, I had met everyone in the room almost. I was just talking to my friends then. They weren't strangers. I'd just been talking to all of them. I was just continuing to talk to them, except now I'm on stage with a microphone, But ultimately, I think the long term, it's about getting okay with being anxious rather than trying to turn anxiety off.
There was a question about a guy who started realizing he was proving sometimes, and sometimes his ego comes into the picture. I think he might get an answer from this show that being shameful about his ego is the problem, and not that part that sometimes we all prove.
I couldn't say it better, man. As if you notice your ego is coming in, then tell people about your ego. I do it all the time. I'll say, somebody, like if I'm at Brojo and I said something that's particularly interesting or whatever, somebody goes, "Oh, you're so interesting," or blah blah blah. Oh, thanks. My ego is pretty happy that you said that. Actually, it's already pretty big, and now it's way too big. Thank you for that. I'll talk about it openly and honestly. And you can talk about it when it comes to dark things. Like if I experience, say, jealousy with my girlfriend, I can talk about that kind of thing. I can sort of say, that my ego doesn't want to share you with somebody else. I can talk about that. That's that detached, that second point I made. Talk about the ego as though it's something you're watching rather than I am. It's a part of you. It's just another part of you. And you can share that part with other people and they'll understand because they got it too.
So when you feel jealous, you don't interpret that as a sign of weakness or sign of low self-esteem. Just it is what it is, and you just be shameless about that, and just express it if you have something like that.
Yeah, it's like we talked about with anger. Like I can react to anger by getting violent. It's a harmful way to react to anger. I can react to jealousy by trying to control my partner or yelling at them or having a sulk. That's a harmful way to react to jealousy. Or I can say, well, you know what? When other guys talk to you, I can actually feel jealousy. Wow, I must want you all to myself. And they're actually going to take that as an ego boost. They'll just be, oh, I am pretty hot. It's great. It's, being jealous is like one of the biggest compliments you can give someone. So like you want someone all to yourself. Like who doesn't want to hear that, right? But it's how you express it. Be shameless about it. Just go, yeah, that triggered my jealousy. Oh yeah, I can feel it strong right now. I can feel it in my chest. That's how much I like you. I don't even want to share you with someone else. You can express it in that way. And jealousy is a big one. Guys be like, oh, I'm supposed to be this confident, cool guy who's unaffected. So it's so wrong for me to be jealous. I've got to turn it off. I've got to fight against it. Like, nah, it just means you like them. There's nothing wrong with that. Just don't use it in a harmful way. Don't go out and look through her phone and get suspicious and hide your jealousy. Go and tell them, yeah, I got some jealousy just then. You can keep living your life. I'm not telling you to do anything differently. You can hang out with other guys, do whatever you want. I'm just letting you know that I like you so much that I don't want to share you with other guys. I can feel that coming up sometimes. And that's it. It's a compliment.
Awesome. So all in all, the key to short-term and long-term satisfaction and short-term, long-term confidence was to be totally open and honest and shameless about ourselves as the way we are.
Yeah, own who you are. Take responsibility for it. Everything. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. There's things that you can work on for your own satisfaction, but whatever you are right now is fine. Just be that. Just how you express it. Express it in a helpful way rather than a harmful way. You should be fine.
Yeah, so it was awesome to have you on the show. Thank you very much, Dan.
No worries, man. I love being here. It was a great chat.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Yeah, you too, mate. Cheers.
Thank you.